Right, so I'm going to get straight to showing you Archetype, but first, here's a sneak peek. Hey there fellow music creators, Andrew Southworth, GeneverStudios.com, here to teach you how to make better music and help you achieve your musical goals. So in this video I'm going to be showing you Archetype by Neural DSP in collaboration with Nolly Getgood, who's a guitarist slash bassist slash music producer, mixing engineer, etc. The list goes on. He owns GetGoodDrums, Nolly does, and he was also the bassist in Periphery and the lead guitarist, or I guess there was really just two lead guitarists in that band, but Red Sea's Fire. So pretty awesome dude, and Neural DSP is a pretty awesome company with a great reputation for making these kind of simulation plugins. I did a video on the past on their bass B7K Ultra plugin thing. It's got a weird name, but it's this fantastic bass plugin. I'm not using it in this song because I don't have it installed on my laptop yet, but this video is about Archetype. So first of all, this is what it looks like. You have a couple of initial pedals that are simulated, so a compressor, overdrive, delay, and another overdrive. You go into the main amp selector where you can select your cab and your amp, and you can tweak all of these knobs here. We'll go through that in a sec. Then you got an equalizer. You can actually set the mic positions, so you can change the distance from the cone and the distance away from the speaker. So like the distance across the speaker cone, and then a distance physically from the surface or the mesh of the amp. And then you can do that for a second microphone as well. You can also adjust all these knobs here too, which I guess is just for convenience, but you can also tweak the microphones, and so there's a lot of stuff in this plugin. And then lastly, you get this an extra delay, which is it's got a lot of settings, and then you get a reverb. So there's a lot here. Now, at the top, this is just the shell interface, as I call it. I've never read their manual because their plugins work pretty easily. Like, this is kind of the shell, as I would think of it. You control the input level of your guitar. You can put a gate up front. You can make it mono or stereo, depending on the settings you have. For example, if you remember going back to here, there were two different mics, and you can pan them differently. So that's one place where this matters. Oversampling is a tricky subject to explain if you don't know anything about software, or like how data is stored inside a computer. But basically, it means that when you have a signal, when you record audio at 44.1 hertz, kilohertz, sorry, you might be thinking, why do we record that fast if we only can hear frequencies up to 20 kilohertz at best? And it's because there's this rule called the Nyquist limit that you have to sample things twice as fast as the highest frequency. And what happens is when you're near that boundary, frequencies do extend past 20 kilohertz, and then they ripple back and cause actual audible things. And this isn't like a fake thing. Like, you think, well, how can I hear a frequency that's 25 kilohertz? Well, you can't. But the way it works in the audio world is that frequency gets reflected back into the audible spectrum if it's above that range, depending on circumstances. So that's what oversampling is. It takes more CPU. So that's why you have the control to flip it. Depends on what kind of quality you want, and if you can live with it while mixing, or you're just going to turn it on right before you do a bounce down. Then of course you have presets here. There's a good amount of presets. So this is Forrester Saval. I've heard that name before. I don't remember where he's from, but I know I've heard that name before. Factory, you got Neural DSP. I haven't tried any of these ones because I went straight to the Nolly ones, and these are fantastic. This particular song that you heard a little bit in the intro, and you're going to hear in full at the end of this video, was entirely done on the guitars using just a couple presets. So I used this Air Raid one, I used Liquid Shred, and I used one, I think, Metal Rhythm, or maybe Prog Metal Rhythm. And that was it. I didn't tweak a damn thing, and it came out fantastic. So, yeah, that's how you do the presets. You can save presets. I don't actually know what this thing does here, but I haven't had to use that yet. So anyways, that's the gist of the plugin. So let me just show you some sound. So the way this song starts off is with kind of an ambient guitar thing, and I have a stack of 3 guitars. I'm going to load up this individual track, and we're going to be just running Nolly. Sorry, we're going to be running Archetype off of that. Oh, by the way, quick tip, if you want to shrink this, you just click this button. There's 3 different sizes. So I have this clip here that is kind of like an ambient thing. So if I play this, this is the default preset. Now I'll go into Nolly and I'll choose Air Raid. And let's just start scrolling through some of these sounds. Fantastic. Let's look for another clean one specifically. Radio effect might be cool. It is very cool, but it's not the effect I was going for. Funky, dry, clean. Pristine. Oh man. Ooh. So that's the gist of just picking presets, obviously. You just pick a preset in the sound. There's a lot of good sounds here, as you can tell already. And then in here, you see that there isn't actually anything enabled. So this basically means you're just going straight through the simulation of the head and not the cab. So let's go back to the ambient breakup one, and let's play around with some of the stereo effects. I'm going to put in stereo. Right now we have this one microphone. I'm going to put the second microphone on, and I'm just going to like randomly tweak these around, because why not? And then I'll pan this one left, and I'll pan that one right. And what's cool is you can also go into these delay effects, and there is a ping pong mode, which was actually already on, but Alright, so now let's take a listen to a different type of sound. This is going to be this kind of swell thing, or not swell, but this just distorted chug. I guess is probably the best way to talk about it. But it's just I hit a note and I just let it ring out, and it's a pretty nice way to listen to how an amp sounds, because it's so simple. You know, you hit a power chord, let it ring out, and hear how it decays. So let's just go in and let's play around with some of these Forrester Saval ones. I might be saying his name wrong. I'm very sorry, Mr. But I'll just click play. Let me solo this. And let's test another one. Insert riffs here. Completely different sound. Let's go back to Nolly. Let's do washed out. Very nice. The D word. Very cool. Now I'll let it actually go to the end of this ring out, because it's you'll hear how like realistic this sounds. If you've ever actually played through a real amplifier, you'll know that like things with the end of chords like bring out weird, and sometimes that doesn't always happen in these amp emulations. Like it'll sound almost too clean the way things fade out, and that's not the same as when you're playing through an amp. I haven't played through an amp in years, but back in the day, that's all I played through. You know, before I get into the recording world, even while I was doing it, I was having band practices through my Mesa Boogie dual rectifier, and then before that I had a crate, and so it's, you know, I'm used to hearing some certain artifacts that I almost can't explain, but with Archetype, it sounds very convincing. So now we're going to the next big application, which is just standard chugging metal guitars. Now, this is something that's double tracked, and I really want to give that effect, because I don't think this will sound good without being double tracked, honestly. So let's just click play. Which, of course, this wasn't like what I wrote this part to be, this particular preset. the one that I used was I went to, I believe, Nolly and Prog Metal Rhythm. And let's see how that sounds. Let's bring the drums in just so you can hear the like how it would actually sound. We'll just listen to the whole track here. So yeah, that's what I used for the actual part in the song, and it sounds so thick. Like you might hear this by itself. Like, oh, okay, you know, that's whatever. It's like a cool sound. But when you add the drums in, you add the bass in, it sounds like perfect. And look, like this is the only plugin on here. It's not in a bus. This is just raw going in with the mix. Now, to be upfront, in the actual mix that you're going to hear in the end, what you heard in the intro, I do have things going into buses that are labeled very badly, of course, because I'm not very good at labeling things. But I have like these lead guitars, and I have rhythm guitars, I have the solo guitar, and I have the clean guitars, and then I have bass. So in each bus, I am routing them through, like here I'm routing them through Neutron, which is kind of a bus processing type thing. It's really just a general mixing plugin, but there's EQ, there's some compression, and that's it. And then they're going into a limiter. And then for these, they're doing a similar thing, going into a reverb. And from here, they're going into a similar thing, and that's it. And then the master bus is just like a standard EQ, compression, exciting, imaging, and mastering, or sorry, limiting type thing that I've shown in previous mastering lessons. I'll link to that at the end of the video. So yeah, point is, even without anything on the bus and just going straight with the drums, this sounds incredible, I think. So maybe a more melodic version of this would be this particular part here, which is kind of a notey thing, I guess. So let's try switching this to the other particular metal preset that I mentioned, which is Metal Rhythm. And I'll do the same thing for this one as well. We'll see how that sounds like. And I'll loop this whole part, and we'll add the bass on so you can kind of hear how that sounds in the context of a mix. So it sounds freaking great, honestly. You know, this, just to let you know, this video is not sponsored by Neural DSP or GetGoodDrums or anyone. They did give me this plugin for the purpose of review, but it's, you know, they didn't give any stipulations on what I could or could not say. So this is honestly just like my opinion. I think this is great. And what I love about a plugin like this, like I have other ones. Of course, they might not be installed in this computer at the moment because this is my laptop since my computer died. But in Native Instruments, I have Guitar Rig 5. It's not in here. And then I think I also have I have the Slate Digital All Access, and that gave me access to another one that I was using recently, and that was also very good. And I think I own at least one Joey Sturgis thing. And those other ones are great. And I do have an Axe-Fx 2 XO Plus. And I gotta say that even though the Axe-Fx is fantastic, I don't think these are better than the Axe-Fx in terms of sound. It's just so easy. Like, I'm not so particular about my guitars that I think like, oh, it's worth all this extra time recording. Because in the plugin world, like I can record this dry, and later I can just tweak the sound whatever I want. If I do with an Axe-Fx, I have to make sure that I'm tracking the dry input as well for every channel, and then later I can go in and reamp it. But that also is an additional pain in the ass that I have to deal with. It's not hard, it's just it takes a lot more time, and the quality difference in the Axe-Fx 2 XO Plus for something like metal chugging guitars, it's just not worth that extra effort to me. Now, maybe for other effects and maybe other genres it is, but like for 90% of people, I think a plugin like this, maybe not necessarily Archetype, but so far Archetype's my favorite, is probably the way to go. So let me move this over, and I'm going to replicate that. There's a guitar solo that I did, very, very simple guitar solo. and we're going to replicate that. So from memory, I believe what I did is Factory, Nolly, and Liquid Shred. I'll shrink this bad boy down, and let's just take a listen to just that thing by itself first. Alright, so there are some differences between this and the final. You'll see this is the thing that I have the most on. I mean, queuing a bunch of the low end out, doing the neutron thing to add some compression. I'm limiting it, and I'm adding more delay. I could do a lot of this in the plugin, but my workflow, I'm used to doing this to guitars, so I just did it to save time. So that's one of the big differences here. But I will show you how it sounds in the context of the mixed with the raw other rhythm guitars that we just did. The drums and the bass, nothing in a bus, so pretty much just raw. So again, it sounds pretty solid. This lead tone isn't what I would do by itself, as you can obviously tell by how much I did here, but if you wanted to get this and sculpt it out all inside of Archetype, one, I don't think anyone would do that, but you could, and I would do that by, you know, just scooping down some of these settings. I'll probably actually listen to it. And that's something like what I would do. And then you could, of course, also go into this compressor, and you can play with that to your heart's content. All right, I think that pretty much covers it with Archetype. I covered this a little more long form than I've been doing recently with my videos, just to experiment with what people like watching. This is a different type of content than what I've been doing recently with more of the music production. This is focused on Archetype and guitar emulation and stuff like that. So if you enjoyed, please leave that like button and send me a comment of what you think about Archetype, if you're getting it, if you have it, how do you like it, why you hate it, whatever it is. And I'm going to leave you with the song, so please consider subscribing. I upload videos every single Tuesday and Friday. Of course, ring that bell if you're going to subscribe, because then you'll actually get updated when I release new videos. So enjoy the song, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.